2015, I got the amazing opportunity to enter the world of politics through an internship on a congressional campaign. It was an eye-opening experience, to say the least. I worked on that campaign for 7 months, and in those 7 months, I got to meet a lot of the people who kept the ship sailing. One of those people was Ashley, the communications director. Sometimes I'd see her get a serious look on her face and rush into her office. There wasn't a doubt in my mind that something had happened on social media. The media used anything that they could to try and tear our candidate apart. Every single move he made was watched. It shocked me. I got to see the consequences of the media's actions when I would canvass. When you canvass, you go door to door and talk to people about your candidate, and you try and educate them on your candidate's positions. It doesn't always go smoothly. I can't tell you how many times doors were slammed in my face on the basis that the media had told them that my candidate was corrupt. Now, I'd never had a problem with the media before then. Quite frankly, I didn't even watch the news on a daily basis. But working on the campaign for 7 months really changed things for me. Now I listen to NPR almost religiously, and I use various apps to bring me the daily news. As a society, we became more aware the second the printing press came to the New World in 1638. Information didn't have to be transcribed by hand anymore. Information spread like wildfire. News evolved. Then, radio stations came to the US in the 1920s. Our need for constant information grew. We became dependent on the radio as a source of information when we heard from President Roosevelt with his fireside chats in the 1930s. Then, during World War II, the radio practically became a staple in the home. The media did us a favor by telling us what was happening in the news. I don't think that it crossed anyone's mind that what was being broadcast wasn't necessarily the truth. The media has been meddling in politics long before I started working on the campaign. A prime example is the Spanish-American War. 2 journalists, Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst, published a story stating that the Spanish had sunk the USS Maine in the Havana harbor. The story bolstered anti-Spanish sentiment. It paved the way for lawmakers to easily declare war. And now, the Maine did sink, but that's only because there was an explosion within the ship, and the Spanish had nothing to do with it. Nonetheless, that story was a highlight of that era of journalism, yellow journalism. Yellow journalism is the bane of any public figure's existence. It's that itch in the middle of your back that you can't quite reach. Yellow journalism is defined as a style of newspaper reporting that emphasizes sensationalism over facts, according to the Office of the Historian. It shocks people. It sells story. It works for the industry. The media nudges the stars into alignment for chaos to wreak havoc on public figures like politicians. Stories can be fabricated around rumor spread without any real validity. Worst of all, when the media reports and reports and reports on these stories, those stories slowly become true. It doesn't matter if there's any inkling of truth behind the story. It doesn't matter if it's about a politician, a corporation, or some international affair. The media will create a story if they can. These moves are practically forced on journalists by their employers. The size of media corporations and their profit-seeking imperative demand it. It happens with private ownership. It can be argued that these corporations have some sort of responsibility to the consumer to present accurate information, but that information is probably in respect to their private interests. For example, Fox News has a much more conservative view than MSNBC. That's because News Corporation, the owner of Fox News, can't afford to lose their private viewership. Therefore, any story that Fox broadcasts will be in respect to their private interests. The need and want of media conglomerates to sell stories comes first. Profits will always come first. The virtues of political reporting are almost non-existent. Political tabloids like the Globe or the New York Post are an absolute insult to politics. There are too many people out there who know more about celebrities or sports than about their political representatives. And I get it. We love to hate politicians, and we hate them just a little bit more whenever we hear about their messy personal lives. The media perpetuates this hatred by reporting on scandals before confirming facts. We seem to believe that if people live good lives, then they'll be moral. And if they're moral, then they wouldn't vote for a bill that would harm their constituency. Our superficial judgment of political figures based on the image that the media gives us and the amount of name recognition they have is a huge problem. According to data from the Pew Research Center, in 2014, 61% of people followed their political representative on social media. 41% of voters believe that they can receive updates more quickly through sites like Facebook or Twitter. This trend is very evident in the world of politics and absolutely taken advantage of in the political arena. A big part of a campaign's push for social media use is that it's direct and personal. Facebook posts or tweets or even Instagram pictures with snappy captions can help counter the inaccurate and often negative media portrayals. A lot of the inaccuracies in media lie in sound bites. Sound bites are snippets of speeches, interviews, press conferences, anything verbal that the media then uses to summarize an event. While sound bites may summarize the point, they can also overshadow everything else that happened at the event, and the media doesn't necessarily go out of their way to fill us in on what happened. Regardless of your involvement in politics, I'm sure that the majority of you are familiar with the "I did not have sexual relations with that woman" soundbite of former President Clinton. Clinton wisely used the same phrase during the Q&A of the trial as during his 1998 speech titled "Response to Lewinsky Allegations." Now, not sure if any of you are familiar with that speech, but Clinton spoke of education reform for 11 of the 12 paragraphs and dedicated a mere 3 sentences to the Lewinsky affair. Yet all we know about it, the soundbite that came out of it, was "I did not have sexual relations with that woman." According to a Gallup poll conducted in 1998, 74% of those surveyed said that there was too much media coverage surrounding the affair. 55% of those surveyed felt that the media acted irresponsibly in covering the affair. The media needs to entertain us and make sure to not bore us all to death. Another Gallup poll conducted in 1998 said that 77% of those surveyed about the Lewinsky affair news coverage felt that news stations cared more about broadcasting the story first rather than broadcasting an accurate story. Despite our criticism, we constantly tolerate what is known as ad nauseam reporting. Ad nauseam reporting is the over-reporting of subjects, including the less than ideal state of politics. Based on the numbers, I think that it's fair to drop coverage of the Lewinsky affair into the ad nauseam category. As a matter of fact, I'd go as far as to say that the Iran-Contra scandal of the Bush administration, the 2014 Veterans Health Administration scandal, and the Keating 5 scandals all fall into that same boat. There is a major saturation of sad or depressing news stories daily. 2 researchers, Mark Tressler and Stuart Soroka of McGill University, set up an experiment in 2014 to figure out just why we're so drawn to these negative headlines. They told participants that they were researching eye tracking while they read the news or watched news videos. They found that we respond much more quickly to negative words than to positive words. The participants were asked to hit a button when certain words flashed up on the screen, and they found that with negative words such as bomb, cancer, or war, they were able to hit that button much quicker than with more commonly used positive words such as baby, smile, or fun. They referred to it as a negativity bias. The participants were also given a choice of different news stories to read. The majority of the participants chose the depressing political story. That's a negativity bias. I don't know a single regular viewer of the news who watches the news to feel happy and positive about where the world is going. They know that as soon as they start listening to the news, that news is going to depress them. But they still watch it. According to a study conducted in 2011 by Pew Research Center, 66% of people state that stories are often inaccurate. 77% say that news organizations tend to favor one side, and 80% say that news organizations are often influenced by powerful people and organizations. So you can gather, the sentiments towards the media are pretty negative. Again, 80% of people surveyed felt that the news organizations are often influenced by powerful people and organizations, meaning that we know that what we're listening to isn't the truth, but we still choose to believe what we hear despite what we know. The Dune Effect, as coined by two students at Stanford University, Jonathan Bruck and Johnny Manzaria, states that those who have control and access to media have access to and potential control of public opinion, meaning that the people who give us stories do exactly that. They give us stories. They control what information we, as consumers, get. Now, the political system in the United States is a representative democracy, which means that we, the people, have a say in what happens in politics, and that say should be unique to who we are. There is a huge problem with how misinformed we can be when we get inaccurate political updates from the media. It makes me sad that the media cares more about broadcasting a story first, rather than broadcasting an accurate story. When I was 16, I worked on that political campaign because I wanted to learn more about the political system of the United States because I admired it. I wanted to make a difference in politics. I couldn't wait to vote and join the crowd. Now it's up to us, the voters, not to let the media's capitalistic drive fool us. We have the luxury of multitasking while we listen to or read the news. But maybe that's not such a great thing. What if we went back to print? Whether that's reading a newspaper, an online magazine, or an e-journal, it's the first step to awareness. We treat the media like it's this innocuous thing. We treat it like it's a teddy bear, when in reality, it's a teddy bear cactus. The second step to awareness is taking pen to paper, making little annotations or notes about what you read and making them count. Becoming more aware doesn't simply involve reading the news, but understanding what is in the news and the bias in the news. You can look for diversity in perspectives, and I highly recommend you do. Each one of us has had a different upbringing, which means that each one of us is going to have a different reason for having an opinion. It doesn't matter if two of us share an opinion, our rationale is always going to be diverse. Diversity is paramount. It's gold, which leads me to my third step, talk about it. Our conversations about politics shouldn't be limited to, hey, did you hear about what happened in Flint? Oh yeah, it's a real shame. And now if you're thinking, well, I don't do that, then congratulations. You are already on step 2. You're making a difference in so many lives. Too many of us acknowledge problems that we face in our country, but we don't even think to propose solutions. We too often fall victim to the bystander effect and wait for someone else to come up with a solution. So what, we aren't getting a call from the White House asking us to consult on an issue. We still have the right to lively discussion with our friends and neighbors, and we absolutely should exercise it. So basically what I'm proposing are the 3 steps to learning. Read it, write it, teach it. It is absolutely an option to become more aware, especially in politics. I think it's common to want to trust the media, the radio in general, like we did in the 1930s with President Roosevelt. It's unfortunate that we can't. President Roosevelt wanted to assure the American public during a time when reassurance was hard to find. He did so by telling us what he was doing in the White House. Now, the media is trying to turn a profit. They are not out to help us. We cannot fall victim to it. We deserve to know the truth. We can't outrun bias in the media. Bias is a prism through which truth is disseminated. What we can do is refuse to blindly accept biased news as whole truths. Don't let the media think for you. Choose to think for yourself. Thank you.